this past Pope was just a little out of step with a lot of the people.
After the Pope passed his papal...
We should never, for the sake of humanity, for the sake of evolving, we should never lend a microphone to Americans. I think the world would be a better place if we never heard from Americans on any issue ever again. Okay? I think...
Or you see Michael there in Vatican City as we celebrate the life of Pope Francis, the spiritual leader of the world's more than 1.3 billion Catholics. There will be 9 days of mourning for the man known as the People's Pope. His body will be brought to St. Peter's Basilica.
And the public viewing will begin there tomorrow.
Bro, they have so many metal ass practices. Like they have the open casket. He's strange.
Mourners will pay their respects. It was also just announced this morning that Pope Francis's funeral will be on Saturday. Thousands of people are expected, including dignitaries from around the world. President Trump and the First Lady will be attending the funeral. And as we said, Michael is in Vatican City where the faithful are gathering. Good morning, Michael.
Hey, good morning, George. We know Pope Francis, he left instructions in his will that his tomb be, quote, simple, without particular decoration, and with the only inscription, Franciscus, which is his name in Latin. The conclave of cardinals will meet in the Sistine Chapel to elect the person who will take his place. And we're going to have much more on that process. But first, our chief international correspondent, James Longman, starts us off in St. Peter's Square, where Pope Francis made his final public appearance just hours before he died, giving the traditional Easter blessing. Good morning, James.
Hi, Michael. Yeah, we've been watching all morning as tourists, visitors, pilgrims come by to pay their respects. They are, of course, finding themselves now in this real moment of history. We now know that Francis will lie in state for 3 days from tomorrow. He'll be brought in a ceremony tomorrow up the steps of St. Peter's Basilica there behind me. Lie in state through Saturday, when the funeral will take place right here in St. Peter's Square.
Thousands flocking to St. Peter's Square to celebrate the life of the Holy Father and mourn the loss of a one-of-a-kind Pope.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
It comes as this morning we're seeing the first images of Pope Francis after his passing.
Like, that's crazy to me, bro. I don't understand the open casket stuff. I mean, obviously the wildest version of this is like, I forget which country does this, but like sometimes there's these like old practices of just like straight up propping up you know what I mean? Straight up propping up and like dressing them and then like making the do stuff at its funeral. And it's like, it's still metal. It's kind of creepy, but it's metal. Like when you embalm, this was a Soviet practice, by the way. Like embalming is like another practice that, commonly was utilized. Like Lenin is embalmed. I believe Stalin was also embalmed. Mao and Ho Chi Minh. I just don't understand. What do you do? What do you mean make it do stuff? I don't know. Sometimes I'll see these like crazy videos of like a dead dude. They'll be like, this is a funeral proceeding for where they just like make the dance a little bit or something. I don't know. I just want to see bodies flopping out of coffins and hitting pavement like that show on Corn Cob TV.
In a simple wooden coffin that he requested. This certification of death ceremony presided over by American Cardinal Kevin Farrell, the Carmelengo, who is essentially running the Vatican until a new pope is elected. The General Congregation of Cardinals is meeting this morning, and they're announcing these next.
Maybe it's some weird Jacobean thing? No. If anything, Catholics, I feel like, are the only children of Jacob that do this kind of like open casket stuff. It's definitely way more like a Caribbean thing or like old school. I feel like it's like old school indigenous practices and shit. Like it's not, I don't know. I feel like it's kind of weird. I don't understand it, but I also think it's like very metal, as I've said.
Steps. The public viewing for the Pope will begin Wednesday. He'll lie in state at St. Peter's Basilica for 3 days before his funeral Saturday in St. Peter's Square. And in his will, Pope Francis with the
most metal Vatican practice, the blackened skull of Mary Magdalene. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Dude, this is like the Catholic Church operates on Warhammer 40K principles in real life. Like they literally do Warhammer 40K shit. Like if they had the technology, the Catholic Church would be Warhammer 40K, okay? Which ironically enough it does take a lot of its notes from Catholicism and Catholic practice. Like when I found out that the Catholics have like Dark Souls style, like direct bones of saints that they send out to like churches all around the world, I was like, that's wild. Okay. Yeah. There are bones. For those of you who don't know, there are bones of saints in many churches around the planet. Catholic churches around the planet all have like ancient relics. It's crazy. It's kind of cool. I mean, it's very weird, but it's kind of cool. They drink the blood of Jesus every week. I mean, I guess that also makes sense. Every altar has a relic in it. Seeing the body lying dead helps for you to accept that the person is dead, I guess. It's debated if those are actual relics, though. They just send out random scraps of clothing, too. Yeah, they do that.
The simple requests that characterized his papacy, asking only to be buried in the earth at St. Mary Maggiore Basilica in Rome. He'll be the first pope to be buried outside of the Vatican in over a century.
Did you know that when the Pope dies, they use an extraction device, kind of like their version of a fleshlight, and they extract the holy seed from the Pope? The juices are then mixed with the wine and consumed by the College of Cardinals? I don't believe that. I think you made that up. That sounds fucking insane. And also an unsanitary practice. I don't believe you.
Details of the conclave to replace him have yet to be released. Francis died Easter Monday from a cerebral stroke, losing blood to his brain. The Pope fell into a coma with irreversible heart failure and passed away at 7:35 that morning. Just a day before...
Dr. Mike Rabinovich would have been able to save him. They should have shipped off the Pope to the pit. The greatest ER technicians of all time. They would have fucking fixed him up real quick. He'd be running around, hopping and skipping the next day, okay?
He was at St. Peter's Square in this extraordinary scene, making what would become his final public appearance.
Catholic Church doing the type of shit that anti-Semites and Nazis think Jews are doing, but out in the open? Yeah. Yeah, but they're Catholic, and they're, you know, supposed to be an anti-Semitic institution historically, so it doesn't matter. They're good. It's good when they're doing that.
He greeted thousands from the Pope-mobile, blessing children in the crowd. Francis held on for Easter, the most important time of the year for Catholics. His voice just a whisper.
Fratelli e sorelle, buona Pasqua.
He had been battling pneumonia in both lungs, hospitalized for 38 days, and he suffered 2 emergencies that nearly ended his life. President Trump summing up what made Francis special.
He's a very good man who loved the world, and he especially loved people that were having a hard time, and that's good with me.
But this Pope was, for some Catholics, a controversial one. We spoke to an American family visiting the Vatican.
This was a Pope who was viewed as socially liberal. This past Pope was just a little out of step with a lot of the people.
After the Pope passed, his papal...
We should never, for the sake of humanity, for the sake of evolving, we should never lend a microphone to Americans. I think the world would be a better place if we never heard from Americans on any issue ever again, okay? I think Americans should permanently shut the fuck up, okay? We ruin everything. We are responsible for so much annoying commentary out there. We're responsible for so much fucking brain rot. But it's on, you're an American with a microphone. I'll shut the fuck up. Let's get it started. I think for the greater good, if the rest of the world never heard from an American ever again, I'd be willing to fucking shut the fuck up. It is so goddamn annoying. Anytime, dude, what is happening? It's just like, anytime you got an American on the mic, I'm like, oh, here we go. What kind of dumb nonsense will we hear today? Okay. What kind of ridiculous bullshit are we going to hear about today?
Apartment closed off, red wax sealing the binds, part of a centuries-old tradition, ahead of preparations for his funeral.
We should know a little later today what hours people will be able to come and view Pope Francis as he lies in state. But it's not just Rome or the Vatican that should be remembering him. This is a man who took the church out to the very margins. And so from Papua New Guinea to Mongolia to the very north of Canada and Inuit communities, millions of people around the world will be remembering him this week.
It's so American to think you can even disagree with the Pope in the first place. Yeah, being like, the Pope is actually out of step with the rest of global Catholicism is like an insane thing to say. It's the opposite, dude. What do you mean? Are you fucking Lutheran? Like, what? I don't understand. Are you a fucking Protestant? Like, what do you mean? What do you mean you're out of step with the fucking papacy? Like, it doesn't make any sense. The entire point of being Catholic is so you're not out of step with what the fucking Pope is saying. What are we doing? Nah, this Pope, too woke, not for me. Okay, I guess you're not Catholic then. You're something different. What are we doing?
Pope Francis did touch so many hearts, and that's why bells tolled in Catholic churches all around the world to honor the Holy Father yesterday. And the faithful have gathered here to remember his legacy. And that included worshipers in Buenos Aires, Argentina's capital.
Yeah. Papal infallibility is a dogma of the Catholic Church, which states that in virtue of the promise of Jesus to Peter, the Pope, when he speaks, ex cathedra, is preserving the possibility of error on doctrine initially given to the apostolic church and handed down in scripture and tradition. It does not mean that the Pope cannot sin or otherwise err in some capacity, though he is prevented by the assistance of the Holy Spirit in issuing heretical teaching, even in his non-infallible magisterium, as a corollary of indefectibility, i.e., whatever the Pope says goes. There is no, I don't agree with the Pope. They would assassinate you a couple hundred years ago if you were like, the Pope guy, this Pope, too woke for me. Okay, you're dead. Now we're gonna kill you. That's like the only thing that separates you as a Catholic from the other branches. You might as well be fucking Mormon at that point. Just make it up as you go along. What do you mean? It's just funny because, like, I don't believe in any of this shit, but you ostensibly do. You claim to believe it. So what do you mean you don't agree?
Where Francis grew up as Jorge Mario Bergoglio. You can remember he was actually the Archbishop of Buenos Aires before he became the first Latin American Pope. In France, parishioners mourned Francis during services at Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris. Palestinian Catholics honored the Pope in Gaza City.
Matt Walsh, rest in peace, Pope Francis. May the next Pope guide the church with courage, clarity, and a deep respect for tradition. Like, Matt Walsh is the most heretical person on the fucking planet, okay? Everything that this woke Pope stood for, Matt Walsh stands against, despite being fucking Catholic. He is exactly who I'm talking about. I am more Catholic than Matt Walsh is with my alignment with the previous Pope, okay? Like, my ideological alignment with the previous Pope puts me in a higher position of being a better Catholic than fucking Matt Walsh. I also feel a deep sense of guilt as well. So that also gives me additional Catholic brownie points. He doesn't. He is guilt-free, okay? He is a shameless monster. Even worse, he's an Irish Catholic and he's got all the wrong takes based on both. I know. It's just like, he's the reason why Irish people from Ireland look at Irish Americans in a very negative lens.
So did people in the Ukrainian city of Lviv. So all over the world, people are mourning Pope Francis. The Pope told us last year that he made nightly phone calls to Gaza's Holy Family Catholic Parish in Gaza, something he continued to do right up until his death. In the U.S., President Trump.
No child of Byzantium should speak on this issue. That's right. Technically, I'm a descendant of the caliphate, okay? I'm directly at odds with the papacy.
Also ordered all of the flags to half-staff. We are expecting to have President Trump come here to that funeral on Saturday, as well as many other world leaders. Vlad?
Nora, he really was the people's pope. As you know, there are more.
Wait, what? Lenin, if they exiled him to Turkey instead, would have been absolutely unstoppable. Happy birthday, King. Wow, they cured his balding. Yeah. Lenin is Turk. Isn't he Tatar? Which is Turkic. So no disrespect to anybody here, but like he is a Turk, okay? Come on. He is a Turkish man. Oh, here we go. I'm just saying the truth. Technically, as someone of Tatar background, he would still be definitionally, he has Turkic roots. And Stalin is also Turkic because he's Georgian and 5'4". And that's very Turkish of him. And his mustache. Kalmyk, not Tatar, but still Turkic. Google says no. Sorry, brother. You take every opportunity to yab about Turks. I just like having like a fun, weird... I like to throw like a fun, weird take in there, you know, to confuse people every now and then. Except this is not one of them. This is the truth. Quarter Russian, quarter Jewish, half unknown, but not Russian. Bro, he straight up looks like the fucking... you know the ethnic spreadsheet that they had in the USSR to profile people or whatever? Lenin looks exactly like the fucking Tatar photo on the ethnic profile. Also, maybe controversial take, but like he looks better bald. I think he was a very handsome man.
More than 1 billion Roman Catholics. It's one of the world's largest religious denominations. For people outside of our Catholic faith, how would you describe the Pope's role in historical terms and its lasting relevance today?
Well, it's a great question. You know, when the Pope speaks, the world listens. I mean, there is no other leader in the world.
Okay, I'm sorry, but no, I think the world has been deaf for quite a bit, for quite a while about the woke Pope. We kind of collectively ignored what the woke Pope was saying because he just kept talking about how the markets won't save the planet, you know? And everyone was like, nah, I think there's a higher religion that I care about, the religion of capitalist dogma. There's a more significant dogma that I abide by, which is capitalism. Straight up. I think it is a testament to the change of attitude overall and the fact that religion doesn't have any motion whatsoever under capitalism. He straight up was like, markets are killing the planet. Gaza has a new act of terrorism committed by the Israeli state on a daily basis. And everyone was like, all right, big guy, go to sleep. Come on.
World that speaks to so many faithful. There, as you mentioned, more than 1 billion Catholics. But he is more than just...
Here. Let's listen. In 2021, Pope Francis gave a speech calling on ending the weapons manufacturing industry, debt bondage of poor nations, and all sanctions, saying it's a form of neocolonialism, while also critiquing the capitalist system for its relentless logic of profit. In the name of God, I ask financial groups and international credit institutions to allow countries to assure the basic needs of their people and to cancel those debts that so often are contracted against the interests of those same peoples. In the name of God, I ask the great extractive industries, mining, oil, forestry, real estate, agribusiness, to stop destroying forests, wetlands, and mountains, to stop polluting rivers and seas, to stop poisoning food and people. In the name of God, I ask the great food corporations stop imposing monopolistic systems of production and distribution that inflate prices and end up withholding bread from the hungry. In the name of God, I ask arms manufacturers and dealers to completely stop their activity because it foments violence and war. It contributes to those awful geopolitical games which cost millions of lives displaced and millions dead. In the name of God, I call on powerful countries to stop aggression, blockades, and unilateral sanctions against any country anywhere on earth. No to neocolonialism. Conflicts must be resolved in multilateral fora, such as the United Nations. We have already seen how unilateral interventions, invasions, and occupations end up, even if they are justified by noble motives and fine words. The system, with its relentless logic of profit, is escaping all human control. It is time to slow the locomotive down, an out-of-control locomotive hurling towards the abyss. There is still time. So what happened? What happened is everybody's like, all right, dude, shut up. The only disagreement I have with the gay woke Pope here is that he thought that there was still time to save this system.
Just a religious leader. He is a spiritual and moral leader. Think about when he talks about climate change. That's a big deal.
Liberals hear the Pope saying this, and liberals be like, wow, this guy's a tanky.
And when he talks about war and peace, he has called war an obscenity. That's why you'll see so many world leaders here. And then I think one other thing to know is he is also the Bishop of Rome. He is a head of state of this very small sovereign state called the Vatican. So he has those responsibilities, and that's why he travels around the world. Vlad?
Nora, beautiful. Thank you very much.
So glad to have you there, Nora. We'll check back in with you later in the show and certainly tomorrow. Thank you.
This morning, cardinals are descending on Vatican City from across the globe, pushing past the world's media, who have also descended to their first meeting. Of the 135 cardinals under the age of 80 eligible to vote in the conclave, the vast majority, 108, were appointed by Francis, including more than 20 from places that had never had a cardinal before.
This is going to be a very open process, it seems to me, in which two things are most important. One, does this man communicate a vibrant, energizing faith? And secondly, can he govern?
As the Catholic Church grows in Asia, Cardinal Luis
There's no metro in Vatican, no high-speed rail in the Vatican, no sustainable energy generation in the Vatican. How do you not call out this hypocrisy, Hasan? Yeah, I can't believe it. Also, their renewable energy grid would look like what? 3 fucking solar panels? I don't even know how you could do... You can't do high-speed rail across the board. There's just no way to do it. It is walkable. As in, you can walk the entirety of the Vatican fairly quickly. It is endlessly walkable, as a matter of fact. It's the most walkable place on the planet.
Tagle from the Philippines is a frontrunner to be the first Asian pope. Referred to as the Pope Francis of Asia, with a heavy focus on social justice and caring for the poor. But at 67 years old, he's on the young side. Or will...
Yeah, here's my young side goat, Pinoy gang.
Many factory workers are being denied the right wages for the God called prophet. How many women are being sacrificed to the God called domination?
Anti-misogynist, anti-capitalist Pope would go so fucking hard. And swagapinos rise up. Oh my God, dude. There's just, I mean... That would be the sickest.
How many children are being sacrificed to the God called lust?
Anti-pedophilia Pope?
How many trees, rivers, hills are being sacrificed to the God called progress? And how many poor people are being sacrificed to the God of greed and defenseless people?
That was anti-abortion, not anti-pedophilia. Shh, shh, shh. Don't talk about that. Don't worry about it. We are, listen, it's a matter up for interpretation. Okay, calm down. Don't ruin it. We got a Maoist third worldist Pope out here.
Sacrificed to the God of national security.
Pope Francis should have said, if I see the gospel in a sociological way, yes, I am a communist, and so too is Jesus. He's been on this. Yeah, I mean, of course. It's true. It's literally fucking true, dude. What do you mean? Yes, Christianity and all religion and all of the lessons that are taught in religious scripture it has a deeply anti-capitalist slant to it, of course. I mean, even some of the most foundational, super basic fucking lessons that you learn as a child, like sharing is caring. Okay? Where is the profit motive baked into this argument? I don't understand. Like, people try extra hard. Well, Protestants, especially, have done everything in their power to turn the Bible into a tool for capitalism. Religion is just another ideological tool that you can wield in whichever direction you see fit. I would go so far as to say it's harder to actually fit religious scripture into a capitalist message, and yet the prosperity gospel has done so fairly successfully. But that's all this is. That's all this is. Jesus curing the lepers and not demanding pay in return goes against the capitalist dogma. Jesus Christ did not fucking deny coverage of the lepers by being like, well, you're outside of our area of coverage, sir. Sorry. That's not how that works. Capitalism is antithetical to all of the social rules and good practices that are that you're supposed to abide by if you truly follow religious scripture. Yeah, supply side Jesus, baby. Bernie Sanders should be forced to give away 90% of his birthday cake. Hashtag happy birthday, Bernie. Yeah, that's how the cake works. Anyway.
Will the church stage an Italian comeback of sorts after 3 successive outsiders in recent decades?
Look at the drip.
Italian cardinal.
How are you going to tell me the fucking Vatican is not a gay institution? Look at the goddamn drip that these boys wear, you know?
Pietro Parolin is 70. He's an experienced Vatican official with serious name recognition. He served as Francis's Secretary of State, but he lacks pastoral experience. Another Italian, Cardinal Pier Battista Pizzaballa, is also on the short list. At 60,
that's like, you know, that'd be funny. Like, that's a funny ass person. That's a funny ass name for a pope.
He's lived for the last 3 decades in the Middle East, currently serving as
It's a me, Pizzaballa. It's a me. I love the pizza. It's a me, the Pizzaballa.
The Latin
yeah, he's pretty cool too. He's got some good ass takes.
Patriarch of Jerusalem.
An Italian.
Now, of course, he would adopt a new name if he became the Pope anyway. But in my mind, I hope he just keeps the name Pizza Balls. I am the Pope of Pizza Ball. I love the pizza balls. Yes.
And comeback?
I think right now, Molly, nationality means nothing in this.
No, hey, but why do you say okay almost after every sentence that it takes?
As a united bloc.
Yes.
Or will the cardinals determine the church requires a conservative voice rolling back Francis's progressive agenda? Cardinal Peter Erdo, at 72, is a leading conservative from Hungary, supported among the European cardinals, and is close to Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban. But it will all come down to the voting. The conclave gets underway 15 to 20 days after Francis's death. The cardinals sealed off.
Remember, woke Pope Francis actually left an impact over the course of the past 12 plus years, where the overwhelming majority of the cardinals that are going to be electing the new Pope are his cardinals. Now, he packed those goddamn courts pretty hard. So we shall see what happens in the process. So the Vatican might still continue moving in the direction of progressivism and maybe even anti-capitalist thought, anti-capitalist sentiment being dished out, especially if they go with Pinoy Gang, especially if they go with a Swagapino Pope.
Inside the Sistine Chapel until a new pope is chosen.
Well, this was decently intelligent commentary until the pizza comments. You get both here, okay?
Now, another interesting thing about the cardinal electors this year, it's an incredibly diverse bunch. They don't all know each other. So a lot of the next 2 weeks will be about getting to know each other and then figuring out who is best to lead. Guys?
Yeah, Molly, thank you so much.
Let's bring in NBC News analyst Christopher White, the Vatican correspondent for the National Catholic Reporter. Christopher, good morning to you. Thanks for coming back. I read yesterday that you said that this Pope was a shock to the system, and I know we're going to dig into some of the specific frontrunners in just a moment. But just on a macro level, Christopher, do we think that the church will move in the direction of a reformer like Pope Francis, or do we think that they might go with someone who's more conservative?
I think it's fair to say the church is at a crossroads right now. Do they want to continue on the path of reform that Francis initiated, of opening the Catholic Church up to the modern world, or do they want a course correction? That's the big question that the cardinals will face when they have these backdoor meetings in the coming weeks. But I think, Pope Francis named 80% of the men that are going to be electing his successor, and because of that, I think it's fair to say they mostly share his same priorities.
You've got, we're kind of putting these cardinal contenders in categories. It's weird to be talking about something that's spiritual, but it's also quite practical. So there's the Italian strand of potential cardinals. Tell us about them.
Well, for a long time, there's been an appetite to resist giving the papacy back to the Italians. We had a Polish pope, a German pope, and then Argentinian pope. If there is going to be an Italian pope, I think Cardinal Pietro Parolin, who is Pope Francis's Secretary of State, his top diplomat, he's a real contender. He has name recognition, and so he has to be taken seriously just on that alone. But the problem is he doesn't have pastoral experience, and for Pope Francis, he often said that he wants leaders in the church to have the smell of the sheep, to be with the people. And so it's hard to square that vision of the church with Parolin's resume. Also, Cardinal Pizzaballa, who Molly mentioned, is someone who's very well aware of the geopolitical circumstances of the moment, and that's why his name has also surfaced.
Christopher, I will take your potential Italian successors and raise you one former Archbishop of Manila. What can you tell us about the Cardinal Tagle, who was mentioned there? Is a 3-1 favorite from Newsweek, a progressive agenda like Francis. What do you think?
You know, Cardinal Tagle was a front runner in 2013. He's in recent years been referred to as an Asian Pope Francis because of his concern for the poor, his own sort of emphasis on humility. He's got the charisma, the wow factor that some people are really looking for in the next Pope. There are questions about how good is he at management, and I think that's something that Cardinals will be scrutinizing in the coming days.
Christopher, really quickly, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't ask you about the American Cardinal.
Oh, God. Charlie Kirk just tweeted out that he has pictures of the extraction of the Holy Seed. What?
And the Canadian Cardinal.
Yeah, Cardinal Robert Prevost, who's the head of the Vatican's doctrine, or the Vatican's.
What are the odds they pick a non-white pope? I don't know. Considering that Pinoy gang, there's like, from what I understand, there's 4 cardinals that like embody the spirit of Pope Francis. And only one of them is white or Italian. There's the Pinoy gang guy. I think there's the other guy that's from, is it the dude from the Congo? And then the American guy, and the American dude is actually black. So, and yes, by the way, before you guys go, excuse me, Italians are not white. No, when we're talking about picking the new pope, Italians are the most white. They are more white than Germans. They are more white than Anglo-Saxons. Okay? The Italians are the white guys in the Vatican. Okay? You cannot be more white than an Italian when you're picking the pope. No, there's an American dude too. There's 2 American guys. One is the fucking reactionary psycho, and then the other one is the black dude. A black pope would make my parents fade. I feel like if they chose a black pope, like even a Filipino pope is going to make people really fucking annoyed and make the racist. A black pope, honestly, I feel like we are going to see new, dusted off, antiquated relics of racism. People are going to be going into the fucking pyramids, okay? Evading booby traps. Opening up the dusted tomes to fucking find new ways of being anti-black because the old ways clearly have not worked. They are going to open up racism artifacts.
Office for looking for bishops around the world. He's Chicago born, but he spent most of his life outside of the United States. I think that makes him someone who knows how the Vatican works from the inside, but he's not really viewed as an American, which makes him an intriguing possibility. And then there's Cardinal Lacroix of Quebec City. He's seen as a real manager who sort of shares the Pope's.
So, chat, Western white culture basically started in Rome. Stop this, Italians are POC. Northern Norwegians are more POC under this framework, for fuck's sake. Yo, that's actually also wrong. That's another thing that I wanted to talk about, which is that, like, yeah, in the post-Mussolini era, maybe, like, the way we understand, like, Italian culture or Roman culture as, like, a upholding white supremacist thought is such a funny cope. Because the Romans historically were not fucking white, dude. They were insanely diverse. Mostly led by brown dudes who were killing the fucking white barbarians and then ethnically replacing that fucking, or either turning them into slaves, indentured servants, or literally fucking displacing ethnically the white barbarians. It's such a funny concept that, like, where I have it right here somewhere. Yeah, white culture isn't real. The AF Loyals, like, very clearly a white supremacist account, okay? One of the funniest copes that dumb fucks have, ironically, and it's kind of like the same cope that Hitler fell to as well with the Roman salute, right? Like the idea that like Germans had some ancient mythology that created this like Aryan race, this master race, and so did the Italians. Like, these motherfuckers were not white, dude. They were gay as hell, and they were not white at all. Yeah, dude, these are movies. I don't know if you know this. These are movies, and they're not an accurate reflection of history. and they are movies made in the Western world, and therefore they have adopted our current standards, our current cultural standards. Of course, they are mostly white people playing these roles, but that's not how this was at all back then. Like, even this, I mean, not to get all fucking nerdy with it, but even this is a lie. This is not how this shit looked back then, okay? It wasn't white, big dog. It had hella colors on it. They were all painted. Every part of the, I like, the Roman era, my Roman Empire in my mind. Like, everything that these guys fucking hold on to is just completely wrong. Like, how brown we talking? I'm assuming way more brown than you. Yeah, of course, way more brown than me. Still European, if not pasty white. What are we talking about? We're talking about the fucking Roman Empire. What do you mean still European, dude? Yes, all the fucking marble statues were not actually white, dude. They were all painted. What is this? Yeah, white people have no culture. Meanwhile, white people. And then this guy's just a pedophile. Okay. The shit that I don't understand, like, why does every white nationalist account automatically go, yeah, look at the white culture. My white culture is like a little girl. That's my culture. You fucking, yeah, white culture is pedophilia, I guess. My ancestor. Himmler had scientists undertake excavations of prehistoric sites. Hitler commented, why do we call the whole world's attention to the fact that we have no past? It isn't enough that the Romans were erecting great buildings when our forefathers were still living in mud huts. Now Himmler is starting to dig up these villages of mud huts and enthusing over every post herd and stone axe he finds. The amount of cope, the amount of anger, resentment, and cope that nationalists of the Hitler era had over not having any serious, like, cultural monuments from that era was unimaginable. It was so crazy that they had to whole cloth invent a new mythology. They had to steal the swastika, for example, ironically enough, and, turn it into, obviously, the greatest symbol of evil. Like, every single thing that they did, they had architects. This is not just Indiana Jones shit. Like, they straight up had architects all around the planet trying to find and dig up new artifacts and then, like, try to make this loose association with, like, Germanic origin. Spain was Muslim African brown for 1,000 or more years. Yeah, that too. Yeah, majority of Greek and Roman marble sculpture was painted based on an examination of paint ghosts on the original statues. Traces of paint, detectable ultraviolet lights have been found. How would emperors be in color? Probably like these. Emperor Macrinus, greatest Roman emperor ever, from Roman Algeria in North Africa, played by Denzel Washington. There's a coin engraving. He looks very not white. Wait, was I saying architects? I meant archaeologists. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's just like endless amounts of cope. White people being like, no, you don't understand. Like, the Nazis did this so funny. The Nazis did this very funny thing where they just had to, like, rebuild. They had to rebuild, like, an entire mythology surrounding it because they had so much resentment for the fact that they were just, like, people living in fucking mud huts and were barbaric, considered barbarians by the superior Roman Empire at the time. And it's funny because like, there is some cool ass shit in German mythology as well that they could just talk about, holding up a strong front against a much more superior military. Like, there's all that stuff that you could actually hype up if you wanted to, but no, they had to also invent new shit. American German people seem to have that inferiority complex too. No, Americans have that same inferiority complex too, because America is a relatively new country that also doesn't have any kind of real mythology. We make that shit up too. Bunch of fucking criminals that came here and then murdered every indigenous person. Anti-materialist ideology doesn't distort history to fit their ideology. Yeah. The Romans had no concept of whiteness. In the mid to late empire, the leadership of the empire was super diverse due to the Romanization of the provinces that have been ongoing for the past 200 plus years. The ethnicity of the soldiers would have been dependent on the period of time and location. Dalmatia and Syria were big recruitment areas. Yeah. Same is true for the Turks as well. Most Turkish history comes from one German archaeologist in the 1800s. I mean, at least you could say that the Turkic, the steppe warriors that came, like there is a existing mythology that I think people cope and obviously fucking harp on regularly. But at least there's like with Chinese mythology, like there is a history there. There's a through line. There's like a lot of stuff you can point to. It's not like Turks will fucking turn around and be like, we invented a shit ton of things and we had buildings that stood tall. Like, no, they're like, yeah, we were steppe. We were warriors of the steppe, a nomadic people. You know what I mean? They don't do the we were kings shit. They do the fucking we were nomadic barbarians. From the historical perspective of anthropology, the turn to describing Romans as Greeks as white and the creation of white culture in the West was due to the fact that they were so astounded by North Africa's marvels, pyramids, Library of Alexandria, descriptions, etc., that they came to the conclusion that they had to be white or aliens did it. Yeah, even the naming convention of barbarians is the Roman Empire saying like, oh, these guys are, they're lesser than us. Look, they're living in mud huts. They're tribal people. It's so weird to think about it now with today's framework because all of these countries are now under the banner of whiteness. But the Roman Empire, like at least the territories that it controlled and what the demographics look like was insanely diverse. Of course, every fucking empire, especially back then, was insanely diverse. What is the most imperialist superpower on the planet? The United States of America. Also very fucking diverse. Look at England. Also very fucking diverse in comparison to other places because a lot of that colonial exploitation ends up bringing people from the colonies into OG land that is doing the colonizing. Yeah. Roman Empire was insanely fucking diverse. The Ottoman Empire was insanely fucking diverse. So empires fail because of DEI? No, empires succeed, ironically enough, because of diversity and DEI for as long as they do. That is literally, there is no world without cultural exchange. There is no world without, by way of trade or by way of war. Cultural exchange has elevated humanity to the position that we've gotten to. There's just nothing. You are nothing without centuries and centuries of people warring with one another and picking up certain things. It's quite literally the opposite. It's DEI or die. So a lot of these people that just like turn a blind eye to that and say, no, actually it's because they were too diverse that they fucking fell apart, they're stupid. In any case, Himmler started to dig up these villages of mud huts and enthusing over every pot's herd and stone axe he finds. All we prove by that is that we were still throwing stone hatchets and crouching around open fires when Greece and Rome had already reached the highest stage of culture. We really should do our best to keep quiet about this past. Instead, Himmler makes a great fuss about it all. The present-day Romans must be having a laugh at these relegations. Anyway, I know it's Reddit, but it's 2,000-year-old portraits of Romans. 2,000-year-old ancient portraits of Romans found in a necropolis in Egypt. Yeah. Bunch of white folk, dude. Like whiteness as a concept, whiteness as a racial construct, also, and like Western civilization and whiteness as a racial construct is a relatively new phenomena in the history of mankind. This wasn't a thing. It's very difficult to explain this to people because we are so, our perspective is so clouded by what we experience and what we see that it's impossible to see a world beyond our limited lifetime. Our intelligence and our scope is so narrow. But like there is no like whiteness as a concept, as it doesn't really exist right now regardless. It's just like a totally made up social construct. The reason why it exists is to justify slavery, chattel slavery specifically, because missionaries were unfortunately converting too many fucking black people to Christianity, and they couldn't justify enslaving Christians. So they had to be like, yeah, well, these guys are not real guys. They're just not even human. They're just inferior beings. Let's just go with that. It's reductive, but that's pretty much the underlying basis for white supremacist thought and the field of eugenics that is associated with it. It's a way to try and scientifically explain the inferiority of black people in an effort to justify it as times changed. Because if everybody recognized that, you know, black people were also human beings, that they'd be like, what the fuck are we doing? This is kind of fucked up, don't you think? And many people did recognize it, for the record. They were like, this is ridiculous. Shouts out the great Reverend John Brown. Skin color the whole time was just our bodies adapting to the environment, so mind-numbing. Also true, the specific American concept of race as a biological or blood-related came from chattel slavery and subsequently gynecology, phrenology, etc. is trying to naturalize it into science. Exactly. There are different depictions of paleness of the skin as a marker for like being a part of the upper caste or upper class or aristocracy, whatever you want to call it. Like even in fucking China, right? And it's not a colonial remnant as it is in other places, but in places like China, the darker your skin is, the more likely that you actually worked in the fucking fields. The more pale your skin was, the more you were sheltered from the elements. So colorism in different ways exists all around the world for different reasons, but you know, it's not always the same. But if you're asking about like whiteness, white culture, white superiority, all of these concepts were invented as a social construct, just like the paleness thing that I was talking about in fucking China, for example, or in Asian cultures. The whiteness concept was a whole cloth invented in an effort to somehow make black people a separate thing, a separate class that wasn't human. Why are you Islamophobic right now? What do you mean? Anyway, yeah. Also for Indians, when they were mass murdering them at first on the basis of them being pagans, and when they converted on the basis of race. But yeah, like I've said before, I do find it fascinating and very funny that like people, like nationalist attitudes don't change throughout time. Okay. They still end up trying to invent a false narrative, a false interpretation of like actual history in a way that reflects their current anxieties, their current needs, and their current understanding of culture, their current understanding of race. Very stupid. Anyway, Kemalist Atatürk Kemal says, if it were up to me, the Pope would be extremely red-pilled. No more acceptance of homos. Declare Islam a threat to all Catholics. Take a firm stance against vaccines. No sacrament to corrupt heads of state. No more baptism of bastards. This is a Turkish Atatürk supporter who is, I assume, extreme Islamophobe. You are African. You don't get to Deus Vault. You're the only one they're going to be impaling Lamau. A man can't dream. Not about this. No. You got to intimately understand you're the enemy in this scenario. How am I the enemy? You're a Kenyan. Wait, this guy is not even a fucking Turk? A Kenyan Kemalist? What the fuck? I've seen it all. What is happening? How do you even encounter a Kemalist framework in all the way in Kenya? One of the funniest things I've seen, by the way, is even Matt Walsh briefly touched on this last week, is that everyone is really annoyed with all of the like African, Indian, Asian run white supremacist accounts that are like Defend the West or Radio Genoa or Ian Miles Chong that will uphold white supremacist thought. And they're doing it because they're responding to the algorithm, and you know, a much longer way when you're in India than it does when you're in the United States of America. So a lot of these guys are just like botting the shit out of their accounts. And because they recognize that the algorithm demands unfiltered, unrestricted white supremacist commentary, half of those fucking almost all of those accounts that are like the marbled statue avatar accounts, almost all of them are actually not white. Like not even remotely white. Not even like Italians are white type white. Like straight up dudes who have never been to the Western world, dudes who are operating their fucking accounts from operating their accounts for the global south in general. Wait, HasanAbi, you mean the alt-right is being unintentionally cruelly mocked? No, it's not even a cruel mockery. I'm sure there's plenty of fucking real-ass white nationalists out there that enjoy these accounts, not realizing that they're run by not white people. But the reason why they're doing that, the reason why those accounts pop off is because they recognize that the algorithm wants this kind of thing and will greatly elevate you. And you can make a lot of money doing so. A lot of money that would not be considered a lot of money in the Western world, but it's a lot of money where you're at. You know what I mean? Yeah. Aryan white savior 1488, location Indonesia. Yep. It is a very sad state of affairs overall. But, I respect the hustle. I respect the hustle. Here's CNN covering some of the cooler things that the Pope has said. I want to get back to that and finish that off, button that up, and then we'll talk about all this other shit. Yeah. All right.
At almost every turn in Pope Francis's trip to South America, his message, the world needs to pay attention to the poor.
Y crece entre los pobres a costilla de los más pobres, de los más excluidos.
All leading up to this bombshell in Bolivia.
La ambición desenfrenada de dinero.
An unfettered pursuit of money rules. That is the dung of the devil.
Saying unbridled capitalism is the dung of the devil, searing language of social activism from the Holy Father as he spoke to a group of grassroots organizations.
The Pope is not afraid to use strong language. He needs to get people's attention as Jesus did in a world full of noise and confusion.
The pontiff also talking about new colonialism, the capitalistic world of free trade agreements and austerity measures that take from the poor and give to big multinational corporations.
As the Pope moves on to his next stop, the message here well received, especially by those countries who've been governed by dictatorships in recent history.
The response from the United States? Unclear. As for conservative Republicans, if the backlash from the Pope's recent letter on the environment is any indication, presidential hopefuls won't hold back.
I don't get economic policy from my bishops or my cardinals or from my Pope.
Pope Francis's speech, dogging capitalism, raises the stakes for those eyeing the White House as the pontiff prepares to address a joint session of Congress in September.
He's going to disturb people on both sides of the aisle. But these Catholics who are politicians and lawmakers are going to have to take what he says very seriously and consider it given his moral authority.
Father,
Indians are brown Caucasians living in Asia. Indians have every race card in the deck. Indians are technically whiter than Africans. Please stop. Whiteness is a social construct, okay, determined by the in-group. The in-group does not consider Indians to be white. It's that simple. Okay, I don't know how we it's like, look, I say I'm white, and in the United States of America, a lot of people do actually consider me to be white, but there are plenty who don't, right? If I'm in Germany, I am no longer white. I am something different. I'm Turkish. Okay, that's that right there. In Turkey, I'm white. In America, I'm white. In Germany, not so white. Okay. Why? Because it's fucking made up, okay? It's made up. That's it.
Father Hernan Paredes, one of the pontiff's closest friends, agrees, saying it's difficult to guess what Francis, who is known for speaking off the cuff, will say, but it'll probably include
the message of hope, the message of pardon, the message of tenderness, I think we say it in English, ternura, a God who loves and cares for his children and who's ready to embrace, not to judge.
As the Pope continues traveling and speaking his mind, it's unclear if 2016 presidential candidates will embrace his views or judge them. Rosa Flores.
This is from 9 years ago.
To the call.